Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Vũng Tàu in Vietnam. First of all, in my series where we go through every region of the world, this is the very first B region. How exciting, we finally made it to the B's. I've been waiting for this, counting down the days, and now it's happened. So yay. Second, you might be wondering, why didn't I center the actual region? Why is it so high up on the screen? Well, that is because this region, Vũng Tàu, isn't just right here. It also consists of these islands down here, the Kong Som Islands, which I'm probably mispronouncing, to be honest. But I'm probably going to mispronounce pretty much everything in this video, but I'm pronouncing it in the English way. So there's that. Just keep that in mind. I listen to a lot of pronunciations and doing my best here. Vietnamese is very, very tonal, right? I feel like way more tonal than other tonal languages in Asia. Also ignore this spot here in my book. I think that's from me resting my hand there while I'm talking about like Thailand and Myanmar over there, or even Laos I've done. But it's kind of an opportune little spot because you can see out here are a bunch of oil wells. And those are also part of Vũng Tàu. Pretty much like this whole area here is considered part of the region. So it's not just this tiny little bit, it's all of this, which is why that's what's centered in my video. That's what I'm trying to get at. We are in southern Vietnam. You can see Ho Chi Minh City is just a hop, skip, and a jump away. We're pretty much in the suburbs, technically, although there is a lot of farmland separating the two cities here. Vũng Tàu is the largest city here. You can kind of see it's a little peninsula here, and it's got a gorgeous coastline. Vũng Tàu is the city proper. It's also the petroleum center. And Bara is the actual capital of the region. That's where all the government-y stuff happens, and this is where pretty much everything else happens. And of course, petroleum is big business here, but I would say that number 2 business is tourism. All along this coast here are gorgeous resorts. We'll take a look at them on Google Earth. And the islands down here are now resort islands for ecotourism. So you go here for the luxury stay, and you go here for the more natural stay. If that makes sense. I hope it does. But let's talk about how all of this came to be. Why are these islands way down here part of this region up here, and not like the ones over here? How did that happen? Well, this area was not really inhabited for a very, very, very long time. It was very swampy before it was really settled. There were people here, I think more inland, and they're apparently connected to the Oc-O culture, which we talked about. You can see over here. You can see Longshan over here. Nearby was the city of Oc-O, which was a big trading community. They even found Roman coins in the ruins there, which is so fascinating because no one knew that the Roman Empire had such a large sphere of influence, right? Large connections like that until we found those Roman coins there. So, of course, they're quite nearby, so they were influenced slightly by the Oc-O culture. The region was controlled by the Chinese for the longest time. It would be many, many, many centuries before the French would eventually take over, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on. Let's talk about how it came to be settled by the Vietnamese. So, in unlike I want to say like the 1600s, the region was taken over by Malay pirates, using it as a pirate base. So the king at the time of the Nguyen dynasty asked some soldiers to go and boot them out. And boot them out they sure did. And their reward was that each of the main soldiers got to settle down and create their own little communities here. They got to keep the land themselves. And that's how settlement really began here, which is kind of cool. They built it up along the coast here for military defense, which they would eventually use against the French. But even before that, I'm really skipping around. Let's talk about these islands real quick, because there's an interesting little story. In 1702, the East India Company, based out of Britain, would it be Britain? It would be Britain by then, right? Not England. The British East India Company, they set up a little settlement here, trying to, build a community here. But it was actually destroyed in 1705 in a mutiny. So I wonder how much of the history of the area would have changed if the British did indeed have their claws sunk into this region for long enough, But it was the French who would win out in most of Southeast Asia and called it French Indochina. The French would have taken over by the mid-1800s. And in particular, the history of these islands at this point get quite dark, because in the 1860s, they turned the main island here into a prison island. And the prisons they built there were actually very, very brutal. We're not going to get into too much detail about the torture these individuals went through, because it's very graphic and we're on YouTube, and this is a relaxation video. We're trying to go to sleep here. But I will say that the main kind of feature, the most infamous part of the French prisons, were the tiger cages. And they were called that because these cells, the roofs were grates, right? They were grated. So the prison guards, prison wardens would poke sharp sticks down the grates at the prisoners where they couldn't really run away, which is apparently what you do to tigers. Which, I'd never do to a tiger, but I'd never do that to a human. I can't imagine what torture these people went through. Oh gosh, there was another one where they had sunbathing cells where it was the same thing but outside, but there was nothing on the ceiling. So they'd be in the direct, hot Southeast Asian sunlight with no shade all day long. Gosh, it must have been. They call it Hell on Earth. That was its nickname. And those would all continue until the end of the American War. They call it in Vietnam. In America, we call it the Vietnam War. Gosh, it was horrific. But something a little more interesting. Once Vietnam was split between North and South, a communist North and I guess you'd call it not a socialist, a capitalist South, an American-ran South. All of the Catholics in northern Vietnam were relocated to Vũng Tàu, which I mention because there's a very, very interesting landmark here in Vũng Tàu that the Catholic community of the city constructed, and it is a very huge Jesus statue, which of course we're going to see on Google Earth because it's fascinating. You can climb up in it and everything. It's on a big hill on the very tip of this peninsula. And I don't know, it's neat. I did not expect to find a statue of Jesus in Vietnam, of all places, right? So interesting. We'll definitely take a look at that. But speaking of the Vietnam War, the city fell to the North Vietnamese military on April 30th, 1975. This whole area just kind of went in a domino effect, right? As the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army took over the entire country, and the Americans and its allies had to flee. And that was when they got to liberate this prison, because of course by then, when it was a French prison, it had been filled with people who were anti-French, fighting for their rights and freedoms against the French oppression. And then it became a prison for prisoners of war during the Vietnam War. So those people were finally freed, and now it's a museum, thankfully. It would be in 1979 that the Vũng Tàu Con Đảo Special Zone was constructed. You can see that's Con Đảo right there, which was this huge area I talked about. So in the late 70s, they had discovered that there's oil in this area here. So in order to maximize the area of, I guess, land, even though it's ocean, right? It's the South China Sea. And they created this huge region here, and they included the islands down here in that, so that there would be an easier little port of call out in these petroleum, these oil mining regions. But it would all be shipped up to Vũng Tàu and the port there. I forgot to mention Vũng Tàu means anchorage. Because the Portuguese used to dock here back when the Portuguese were a worldwide global trading force back in the 1500s, 1600s. So it's always been kind of a dock kind of area, a little port, and very much is today. But like I said, nowadays, I think since the 2000s, this region has really blossomed in resort tourism. I guess you come down from Ho Chi Minh City for the weekend and live in luxury here on the beaches along the coast. I was reading about this project that they were attempting to build called the Saigon Atlantis, which would have been, if I remember, I'll throw up a picture of the concept art. It was like one of those huge monstrosities you see in Qatar and the UAE, like those huge man-made islands that are just decked out in its unusual shape in the most luxurious hotels, the most luxurious everything. But I didn't find any information about if it was done, or even if ground was broken on the construction. And then I'll show you on Google Earth where I think they tried to start construction on it, but I don't think it's gonna happen, because they announced this back in 2006 or something, 2008, 2009. And if it's not done by now, I don't think it's ever gonna get done. But like I said, down here it's more ecotourism. Some of these islands are turtle egg laying islands, so you have to be very, very careful. I think that the big turtle island, it's not called that, I'm just saying that the main island where turtles come to lay their eggs, I think is mostly off limits for people during that time of the year. But you can still go and see the turtles and learn about them, and enjoy very natural vacationing, I suppose. That's ecotourism, tourism where you don't hurt the environment. So you really get the best of both worlds in terms of vacation. I think that's really neat for this area. And of course the city is big and blossoming today due to that petroleum industry as well, which is still thriving today. And that's the history of Bara Vũng Tàu. So why don't we hop over to Google Earth, because I've got some interesting things. We gotta go see Jesus. We gotta go see the islands. We got a bunch to see. So let's head over there right now. I can't wait to show you. Here we are, Bara Vũng Tàu. As you can see is this area here. And the islands, which was taken on a cloudy day. There we go. Kong Son Islands here. Kong Dao Islands, that's Kong Son Island. Kong Dao Islands. But let's start up here in the city. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's start by zooming out, because I was way zoomed in on my map. We gotta see where we are in the world. Maybe you're not sure where Vietnam is located, and that's okay. Let's learn. Here is Vietnam. It's a very long country here along the coast. bordering Cambodia and Laos. Thailand is not too far away. Down here is Malaysia and Indonesia. The Philippines over here. That's where we are in the world. Oh, I guess it also borders China as well. I should mention that. There's Ho Chi Minh City, the largest city in Vietnam. Vũng Tau's just right there. If anyone who's going to be like, actually it's Saigon in the comments, sure. If you wanted to comment that, by all means, go for it. So here, as you can see, this pretty much entire peninsula is very populated, right? And then across the river we have Bara, which I didn't really find anything too interesting to look at in this city, to be honest. Like I said, it's way smaller and it's more administrative than anything. All the interesting stuff is down here. But we really want to see that Jesus statue, right? So we're going to come way down here. And look who it is. There's Jesus in Vietnam. You know, it was built during the 90s, because I feel like if it was definitely during the 70s or during the 80s, the government wouldn't have allowed this, but times are way more lenient in Vietnam than they were back then. Because, you know, it's a communist country. Communists technically aren't big fans of religion, but it was during the 90s, after the Soviet Union collapsed, when a lot of countries were like, you know what? You know, like China was like, you know what? Vietnam's like, you know what? Cuba had always been religious, let's be real. But look, it's a big complex here, and you can go up. Can you see the people up there in his arms, on his shoulders? How neat is that? There's Mary and Jesus there. And you can see the whole city up on top of there, and of course the beautiful view of the ocean. All kinds of statues here. It's so pretty. Whoa, it's like a kaiju. Oh my goodness. So yeah, this here was built by the Catholic community of Vũng Tau. It's really neat. My brother-in-law is Christian. Oh, here's a cannon that they had used to fight the French off long, long ago. My brother-in-law is Christian, and I asked him, like, what's the deal with the Jesus here? And he didn't know, so we went down a rabbit hole of just Jesus statues around the world in general. And now he has a life goal of seeing all the statues. Look, that's the view from the arm. So I mapped out a travel itinerary. I think it was like 25 countries to see all of the big famous statues, including this one, right? And that's his dream trip now, and it sounds like fun. I wouldn't mind tagging along on the tour to Jesus to see them all. You know, I'm not Christian, but still, it's seeing like corners of the earth you wouldn't normally see. Like, I think the interesting thing about this area is that if you're traveling to Vietnam, this part gets overlooked, right? Most people wouldn't specifically come to Vũng Tau. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. Let's take a look at some beaches here. I think if we look at this one, might be the more interesting slideshow. Yeah. So we can see the gorgeous, gorgeous beaches here. My kind of beach with the sand, and there's cool like pavilion here and trees. Of course, the waves. I love swimming in the ocean. I bet that water feels great, especially since this is a very humid part of the world. I bet it feels awesome to get in that water. But yeah, the whole area is pretty much all beaches. So you have your choice of beach. You're not confined to just one main beach, which is awesome. Look how busy it gets. Ooh, my goodness, must have been a hot day. Look how beautiful. That's a nice beach. So let's go check out some resorts. They're mainly over here, I want to say. You can see lots of cool camping, which is mostly like glamping, right? See, look at this one. Holy moly. all along the coast here are the big resorts. Oh, I promised I'd show you where I thought the that, what was it, the Saigon Atlantis was. It's over here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Nope, that's a resort. That's a regular resort. There's a big golf course. Let's see if I can find it. This is apparently the largest roundabout in, I want to say Asia, but that doesn't seem right. Probably Southeast Asia. Did I lose it? Maybe it was over here. I didn't think it was. I thought it, no, it was nearer to, oh no. No, that's just a regular dock. No, it was closer to over here. Gosh, maybe Google Earth is updated since I last researched. It was over here somewhere. Oh, no, not that. That's the golf course. Maybe it's all updated now. No, I think this is it. So I think this is where they were trying to build it, because the plans that I saw had this big long road with all this space next to it. So I think they were planning to build it here. I'm pretty sure. Just because you can tell all around it, it's not very developed either. So that's what I think was going to happen, and it just never happened. See, now it's like a dead-end road that they had all decked out, all pretty, and it leads to nowhere. I think this is where it was supposed to be honest. But it's not. I think it was a project that flopped. Maybe some like sheikh or prince or something had plans to build it, right? Someone from the Emirates, or maybe even like Saudi Arabia, or someone had ideas that never panned out. You can see all these resorts here. It's so luxurious looking, right? Get your little like beach house on the beach, right? But then when you zoom out, you can see all this amazing farmland, which of course the majority would be rice, but it also looks like there is some aquaculture down here for growing fish. And of course all of these waterways very much help out to make sure we're not leaving the region. Okay. I found a resort over here that I'm low-key obsessed with, but I gotta find it. This one. Monera Hot Springs. So this is a hot spring, right? Like a classic hot spring, but take a look at it. Oh my goodness. You wouldn't be able to get me out of that. I would be in this for hours and hours. And there's even little bath things there with different temperatures. Look at the little tree house. That's where I would stay. I wouldn't be in any of these fancy rooms. I'd be outside. They got a spa, a Greek spa. The interior there is all gorgeous. Boiling some eggs in the water. This looks like a dream. This is where I would stay for sure. Look at that big, it looks like a ground sloth or a tanuki or something. I'm not sure what that is. Like there's a little wading river. Oh my gosh, must feel amazing. This one's 82 degrees Celsius, which my goodness, that must be like 120, 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice dining. Yep, this is the resort I'd be at. It's in the woods, in the jungle, I suppose. There's farms nearby, and gorgeous water. This is the one for me. That's exactly what I like to do on vacation. But let's head down to the islands to close out this video. So here's the main island, Konson, and the Kongdao Islands. And let's take a look at the prison. Let's start off sad and just get happier. Here is the prison built by the French back so long ago. So these are the tiger cages from above, and they would poke, rods down there to torture the inmates there. Just horrible, horrible things. That room was reconstructed. Most of them were destroyed. See, that's what it would have looked like. All those people in there suffering. Ugh, it must have been just, I mean, they call it hell on earth for a reason, right? Doing something there. Some kind of something. I'm not sure. Here's the sunbathing rooms, which I mean is just direct sunlight for probably like 10 hours a day, right? And of course there's a chapel here, which is a bit ironic. The doors into the cells. So much misery happened here. So much suffering. There's a graveyard nearby with just thousands of graves, most of them unmarked, of course. Very dark, dark history of this island, but that was the past, and now we're on to just resplendent, beautiful nature. Let's look at this. National Park Tourist Office. Let's take a look. The cool jungles here. You can explore all these cool hiking paths. How neat is that? Oh, wow. I bet those trees are really fragrant. There's the office there. But, yeah, and of course the gorgeous beaches. There's all sorts in these islands. There's a macaque. Their long, long, long tails. Who was it? I think it was Ptolemy? Someone in the Greek / like Roman influenced Greek times wrote about these islands and was writing about these monkeys, and they said it was humans with monkey tails. So of course they didn't know what they were talking about, but it's just the monkeys. There's a big, maybe a whale, which is interesting because we are in the part of the world where traditional whale worship happened, and is still happening today, to be honest. It's very traditional. It's been in the culture for hundreds of years. I'd say all up the coast of Asia here, up into Japan, there's a whale worship. Which makes sense, right? They're basically like huge gods, right? I'm pretty sure this is the Turtle Island here. Honba. Let's take a look. Because, yeah, this is like perfect for turtles to come, right? Let's see. Oh my gosh, we want to see. Look at all the mangroves here. Yeah, all these islands are open. See, look, there's turtles there. All these islands are open for tourists to enjoy the beautiful, beautiful nature on the boats here. Relax on these untouched beaches as long as there's no turtles there nesting. Go scuba diving. You saw kayaking before. Just enjoy all that nature has to offer you. There's a turtle right here. She's digging in there, making a big, big hole to bury her eggs. Look at that gorgeous Milky Way imposed over the island. Take your yacht down. Enjoy just the peace and quiet. He's having a great time snorkeling. Explore the coastline on your boat. There's just so much to see. It's so beautiful. I'd highly recommend, as always, that you come down and explore these islands yourself and see if you find anything cool. Let's close out on this slideshow here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. If you're new to the channel, welcome. You joined at just the right time because we just started the B regions just today. And oh, it's pretty. Next time we are heading over to Lebanon, and we are going to see some of the most fantastic Roman ruins. Just absolutely amazing. You're not going to believe it if you've never seen these old temples before. You gotta see it. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night. Good night.